Amen, amen. You guys can take a seat. There we are. All right, well, good morning again. Thank you guys so much for being here, spending some time with us this morning, especially if this is one of your first times here. We're so grateful that you chose to spend the next 4 hours with us at Retro. I'm just kidding, we are an hour, take it easy. But for the last week or so, I've really felt just a heavy burden on my heart for God's church. You know, usually in the summer, churches will experience record low attendance. And if it's all right with you, I want to be bold in just our fourth month in existence as a church to say that I don't want our church to have lower attendance in the summer. I want our church to grow this summer. Are you guys with me? Is that okay this morning? And it's not going to be because of a decision I made or something that I said on this stage. It's going to take collective buy-in from all of you who call Retro home. Can I challenge us this morning to not be seasonal Christians? Can I challenge us this morning to choose the sun over the sun? I'm a dad. I can make corny jokes. For those of you that are still waking up this morning, choose the Son, the S-O-N, who is Jesus, over the S-U-N. But seriously, go to the beach after 11 a.m. Or better yet, go to the beach on Sunday. I bet you there's less people there because every other normal person is at church. But can I also submit to you the best way that you could share the good news of Jesus is by showing your friends and family that it's a priority to you. Yeah, it's one thing to share something on Facebook or Instagram. That's great. But when you tell someone, hey, I can't go until later, I have church in the morning, you might not notice the impact that it will make. But when someone sees you make Jesus a priority, you might not notice it, but it makes them question, should I be making him a priority? So that's my challenge for us as we head into the summer, that we wouldn't be a church of seasonal Christ followers, but a church that would prioritize Jesus, because we spoke a lot over the last few weeks about what it's like to follow Jesus, about denying ourselves and picking up our cross daily, even when the weather's nice. All right, so that's the message before the message. All right, that was all intro. But last week, if you were here, Lee did a great job preaching. If you missed the message, go on our YouTube and check it out. But he did a message about fish, so I thought, what better way to follow up that message by also doing a message about fish? So we'll be reading from Mark chapter 6 today, and if you don't have your Bibles, they'll be up on the screen for you. And it's going to be a little bit of reading, but stick with me because there's some really good stuff in here. We're going to be reading a story about Jesus feeding over 5,000 people, which is the couple pieces of bread and a few fish. So Mark chapter 6, picking it up in verse 30, it says this: The apostles returned to Jesus from their ministry tour and told him all they had done and taught. Then Jesus said, let's go off by ourselves to a quiet place and rest a while. He said this because there were so many people coming and going that Jesus and his apostles didn't even have time to eat. So they left by boat for a quiet place where they could be alone, but many people recognized them and saw them leaving, and people from many towns ran ahead along the shore to get ahead of them, much like the paparazzi and TMZ. And Jesus saw the huge crowd as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. Verse 35, late in the afternoon, his disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the nearby farms and villages to buy something to eat. But Jesus said, you feed them. With what, they asked? We'd have to work for months to earn enough money to buy food for all these people. How much bread do you have, he asked. Go and find out. They came back and reported, we have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Then Jesus told the disciples to have people sit down in groups on the grass. So they sat down in groups of 50 or 100. Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looked up to heaven and blessed them. He thanked God for them. Then breaking the loaves into pieces, he kept giving the bread to the disciples so they could distribute it to the people. He also divided the fish for everyone to share. And they all ate as much as they wanted. And afterward, the disciples picked up 12 baskets of leftover bread and fish. A total of 5,000 men and their families were fed. Scholars believe that there were actually between 12 and 15,000 people. We're wrapping up here. This is the very next story right after this miracle happens. Immediately after this, Jesus insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and head across the lake to Bethsaida while he sent the people home. After telling everyone goodbye, he went up to the hills by himself to pray. Late that night, the disciples were in their boat in the middle of the lake, and Jesus was alone on land. He saw that they were in serious trouble, rowing hard and struggling against the wind and the waves. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. And he intended to go past them, but when they saw him walking on the water, they cried out in terror because they thought he was a ghost. And they were all terrified when they saw him. We're wrapping up here, last verse. But Jesus spoke to them at once. Don't be afraid, he said. Take courage, I am here. Then he climbed into the boat, and the wind stopped. And they were totally amazed, for they still didn't understand the significance of the miracle of the loaves. Their hearts were too hard to take it in. The title for our talk this morning is, Do You See What I See? Do you see what I see? Anybody know that? That's like an old song. Let's pray. Let's pray this morning. Oh, Lord, we thank you for this day, God. We know that each one of us come in here with the weight of a burden or a distraction or something going on in our lives today, but I pray that for just a moment, God, that we can not just lay that thing down and pick it up later, but it could be a moment for us to lay it down at the foot of the cross and say, Jesus, I can't carry this anymore. I need you to carry it for me. And that is why you are such a good Savior, God. Today we remember those who sacrificed their lives, who serve this great country, God. We know that there's many things that happen in this country that divide us, and bad things and good things, God, but it is still the greatest country in the world, Father, and I thank you that we are blessed to be here. So I thank you for this morning. I pray that you would just move me out of the way now. You would speak through me today, Father, and that you would deliver a message, that you would challenge those who need to be challenged and encourage those that need to be encouraged. Jesus, we love you, and we thank you for all things. And everybody said, Amen. So, does anybody watch the show Impractical Jokers? Okay, all right. I don't know if that's like a Long Island thing or whatever, but I feel like everybody watches it. But they have this episode where they're in the park, and they have to tell strangers that they see the most random thing in the clouds, right? Maybe you've played this game with like your kids, or you're like, do you see that shape? That cloud is shaped like that. But they have to sit in the park, and they'll sit on a park bench next to a stranger, and their friends will tell them what to say, and they tell them like the most obscure thing. So they'll sit next to a stranger, and they'll be like, hey, you see that cloud? I see like a man on a toilet smoking a cigar. And the people will just kind of like lean over, and then they'll do what this is. Do you see what I see? And if they say no, they'll be like, look, this is what everybody does. Follow my hand. And they'll look up their arm to their finger to find it, and the people will either say they don't see it, or just to get out of this awkward situation, they'll just agree and say that they see it. There's also these images. I'm not sure if you've seen them before. Let's bring up the first one. Okay, how many people instantly saw a duck? How many people instantly saw a rabbit? A few. Does anyone not see one or the other? There's the rabbit's ears and its face, and then if you flip it around, it's a duck with the beak and the eye there. That's all. Thank you guys for coming out today. I appreciate you guys being here. Bring up the next one. Okay, how many people saw the lady's face? How many people see the saxophone player? All right, you see the lady's face, that's her mouth and her nose and her eyes, and here's the bottom of the saxophone, flipping it around, and that guy's big schnoz there. All right, let's bring up the last one. The last one. How many people see a vase? Or if you're fancy, a vase? How many people? I missed the hands. Just a few. How many people see two faces? See the two faces, the nose and the mouth there? And it's interesting that you can see something so clear, but the person next to you doesn't see the same thing. And as we read this story in Mark, we'll notice that Jesus sees something that the disciples don't see. And I wonder how often the battles that we're facing in this life aren't battles of circumstance, but they're actually battles of vision and perspective. So often Jesus can see things in our lives like, do you see two faces? And we're like, no way, Jesus. I see a vase. I do not see what you're seeing. And the story that we read in Mark, it's actually a battle of perspectives. And what's interesting about this story is that the disciples are hungry. They're hangry. They says they didn't eat all night. And they're just trying to get away from the crowds and have some alone time with their besties, with Jesus. But the crowds are so in need of Jesus that they run ahead of them and wait for him to arrive. So the boat rolls up, and the disciples see the crowd, and they're like, Jesus, we need some alone time. Send them away. And Jesus instead says, feed them. So the disciples see a crowd coming, and they see a problem. But Jesus sees the crowd coming, and he sees an opportunity. So I wonder how often in our lives we are sending things away that Jesus is actually asking us to fix. I wonder how often we are sending things away in our life that Jesus is asking us to fix. So today we're going to go through a few observations that we read in Mark chapter 6. The first one is this: the battle of perspective. So to recap, the disciples get in the boat, they go across the land away from thousands of people, and the people rush ahead to get where Jesus is and where the disciples are heading, and they come to the crowd, and the disciples say to send them away, and instead Jesus says, fix it, and they're like, fix it? Jesus, we're in the middle of nowhere. What do you mean, fix this? How can we fix this? One translation says that they are in a desolate place. So consider this morning. We too can often make our location the place that God can't bless. Like God, Long Island? It's too expensive to live here. How can you make an impact here? People call Long Island the graveyard for churches, that's where churches go to die. Not anymore. Long Island is too politically driven. God, I don't think that we can accomplish great things here. So the first wrong perspective was their location. Jesus, we really want to help with the miracle, but look around. Clearly, this isn't the right place for a miracle to happen. The second thing that they do is they say they don't have time. It's too late in the day. Jesus, if you would have asked us in the morning, then maybe we would have had time to get everything in order, but it's too late now. And how often do we allow time to restrict God in our lives? For some of us, it's feeling like it's too late. Like, God, I'm 40. What can I accomplish now? God, I'm 65 years old. I don't have enough time left to make an impact and accomplish all that you're asking me to do. And for others, it might be too early. Jesus, I'm 16. I can't do this right now. I'm not old enough. I'm not smart enough to do what you're asking me to do. Jesus, I'm 23. I still want to live my life and hang out with those friends, even though they might be a bad impact on me. But I'm telling you, I got time. Later, I'm going to be a real follower of yours when I'm older. So the first wrong perspective was their location. The second wrong perspective was their time. Next, the third wrong perspective was that the third wrong perspective they had was that they didn't have enough resource. Jesus, there's 5,000 men, plus women and children. There's upwards of 10 to 12,000 people here, Jesus. We don't have the resources to feed them all. Think about this. How many dreams has God spoken to you, but your excuse is that you don't have enough resource? There's too much to do. That job is too far. That degree would take too long to get. I don't have the resources to do what you're asking me to do, God. Side note, if we would have waited to have all the resources to start this church, we never would have started this church. We stepped out in faith despite lacking the finances and the volunteers and our own building and so many more resources, but because we stayed obedient, despite the lack on the surface, it opened the door to God performing miracles. 11 people got baptized a few weeks ago that wouldn't have been baptized if this church didn't start. People gave their lives to Jesus. Many heavy prayers were prayed and others answered, and so many people found community and care through you guys. But it never would have happened if we didn't step out in faith despite lacking the resources, which, by the way, we're still lacking. And I tell you that not for like a pat on the back, but just to let you know that as a leader, I will never ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. So Jesus sees this crowd, and he wants to do a miracle. And the disciples say it's the wrong time. It's too late in the day. It's the wrong location. We don't have the resources. But Jesus says it doesn't matter how late in the day it is. It doesn't matter what the location is. It doesn't matter what resources we have. If I am God, then I'm going to be God. It doesn't matter where I'm at or how much resource we may or may not have. If my plans are to do a miracle, guess what? I'm going to do a miracle. So Jesus takes the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, which is clearly not enough for all the people there. And the Bible says he looks up to heaven and he gives thanks to God for what is not enough. He takes what is not enough and says, God, I thank you for what I do have. And I know it doesn't look like a lot, but I'm thankful for what I have. Can I challenge you today that if you don't learn to be thankful for the not enough, you will never be grateful for the enough. If you don't learn to be thankful for the not enough in your life, you will not learn to be thankful for the enough. God, this job doesn't look like enough. My finances don't look like enough. My marriage doesn't look like it has enough. God, I thank you for the not enough. And then Jesus takes the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and he creates a miracle out of what is not enough, feeding thousands and thousands of people out of what is not enough. Think about it this way. What in your life have you kept telling God is not enough? I don't have enough. My job is not enough. My relationship doesn't have enough. My bank account doesn't have enough. Our marriage doesn't have enough. My business doesn't have enough. What have you kept telling God is not enough? You might feel like it's not the right time. It's not the right place. It's not the right resource. But good news, if everything else is wrong, but God is right, it ends up being the right place and the right time and the right resources. So Jesus tells the disciples to go and take inventory of the food they have. He says, go and find out. Notice, Jesus doesn't find it for them. Right? He tells them to go and look, and they find it. And here's what we can apply about that part into our own lives. Jesus can't bless what you won't find. They go to the crowd and they find 5 loaves and 2 fish, and they bring it back to Jesus. So if I could challenge you today, it's that maybe today is a good day to take inventory of your life. Consider what you do have and what and who is in your circle. What do I have that might not seem like enough, but if I give it to God, he will make it enough. The Bible says in John that they find a little boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. And what is really interesting about what we read is that the Bible recorded the attendance as what? 5,000 men. It didn't account for women and children. So the answer that they were looking for, hear me, the answer that they were looking for was within someone that they didn't even count. I wonder how many answers you're looking for and they're within someone you don't want to count. Right? It's in a job you don't want to count. It's in a relationship you don't want to count. But the thing you need is right there, but you'll keep yourself from receiving what God has for you because it's within someone you don't want to pay attention to. So if Jesus is telling you to go and find it, good news, that means the answer is not beyond you, it's within you. Notice Jesus doesn't tell them to go to the next town over and see what they can find. He says it's right here. Go and find the answer. It's here. Can I encourage you today that the answer you're looking for, it's here. You don't have to go far and wide because the answer is closer than you'd think. Moving on, point number 2 is this: the battle of order. The battle of order. So Jesus takes the bread and the fish, he blesses it, and he tells them to sit down in order in groups of 50 and 100 people. So before Jesus created the miracle, he first needed to create order. Some of you here today might be frustrated, wondering like, God, where is my miracle? But maybe your life is out of order. Maybe. And I promise that this is actually meant to be encouraging. You might feel like you're being punished, but I believe that you're not being punished. Maybe God is first trying to create order in your life. He's getting your relationships and your money and your thoughts in order because he knows that if he were to give you the miracle when you're in disorder, the miracle will get disordered. I'm going to say it again because you guys need to hear this today. If God were to give you the miracle you're looking for right now when you're in disorder, the miracle will get disordered. So he waits to give you the miracle until you're in order so that when he gives it to you, it can survive. That's why so often people will win the lottery, right? And then they end up bankrupt in a few years because they don't know how to order money. So more money doesn't change their disorder. I want that job promotion, Jesus. Well, let's get your current job in order first. Jesus, I want to get married. Well, let's get your life in order before I bring somebody else's into it. A side note, if you aren't good single, what makes you think you'll be good married? I've heard people say this before, like things are okay, but we have some issues, but I think once we get married, it'll work itself out. No. If you have anger issues, self-centeredness issues, humility or pride issues, guess what? They won't go away when you're married. They'll multiply. Married people in this room know that just wait until your spouse is there every day. It's awesome. And then my wife's and kids, so I can say whatever I want. Then when you get married, right, the issues continue, and you're like, well, I just think that if we have children, that'll really help our relationship get grounded, and it'll help us be more mature. Wait until you're up for the 17th night in a row at 3 a.m., and your spouse kicks you like, it's your turn. And you're like, wrong, I did it last time. You're like, no, I did it last time. And that person's like, well, I didn't even want kids. This was your idea, so you get up. Because marriage is very much about denying yourself and putting your spouse's needs and desires before your own. So be good single, and you'll be good married. That was just a nugget for the unmarried people in the room. God, where is my miracle? Take courage. He's reordering right now. So Jesus thanks God for the loaves and the fish, and then he tells the disciples to order the people into groups of 50 to 100 because we need order before I release this miracle. Understand that Jesus isn't like the t-shirt toss guy at a sporting event with the t-shirt cannon. Like, you want some bread? Amen. I can't hear you. You want fish? Foo. Back row. Foo. No, they always throw it not to me anyway, so what's the point? No, he tells them to get in order. So what in your life right now is out of order? Think about this. What in my life is out of order that I need to get in order so God can release the answer to what you've been praying about? So it's a battle of perspective. It's a battle of order. And our third point is it's a battle of knowing your role. So who did the miracle? The Bible says that Jesus didn't hand out the loaves and the fish. The disciples did. So it's possible to think that some people in the crowd might have thought that the disciples pulled off this miracle. Right? Like, hey, you guys performed a miracle. Well, not really. No, I saw you. You guys were handing out the food. Well, yes, that's true. So you created the miracle. No, I was just simply giving away what Jesus gave me. Guys, we are just giving away what Jesus gives us. We are not the creators, but we must remind ourselves that we are partners in this thing. So how did you get that job? Well, I applied for it, but Jesus opened the door. Well, how did you get that much money? I mean, I went to school and I'm good at saving, but Jesus guided my steps. Or we can go, yeah, that was me. How'd that business grow? Worked hard in school. How'd you grow that church? My personality. How did you get that money? I'm a hustler, baby. It was all me. But no, stop, don't make me laugh. No. Yes, we are partners in this thing, but we are merely handing out what Jesus has given us. We are partners in our lives, in our school, in our relationships, in our money. But let's not kid ourselves. It was not by ourselves. Remind yourself today that it was another man behind the curtain giving you those ideas, giving you that job and those relationships, and his name is Jesus. So remind yourself today that you have a role, and Jesus has a role. We are merely the recipients of what God gives us. Was it you? Kind of. But I don't know about you. I want to live a life that is so much beyond my talents and abilities that the only logical response that when people look at me is, God must have did that. I want to live a life that there is no other response other than God must have promoted you. God must have given you that idea. God must have done that because I know you, and you couldn't do that. And we could be a church that says, yeah, you're right. I know my role. And I'm just simply handing out what Jesus has given me. Was it you? Yeah, I was involved, but it wasn't me. So today, let's remind ourselves of our role. Which brings us to our last point this morning. I'm going to invite Luke to come back up. Our last point, Jesus does the miracle. He feeds over 10,000 people with what started as 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Unbelievable miracle. And then Jesus tells the disciples to get in the boat, and then Jesus leaves them. Have you ever felt like Jesus left you? Welcome to being a follower of Jesus. We all likely from one time or another have felt that. So Jesus says, hey guys, get in the boat. And they're like, Jesus, are you coming? And he's like, no, I need to go have some alone time. You go across the lake. I'm going to go and pray. So they start out on the water and a storm comes in, and the Bible says that they're struggling, rowing against the wind and the waves. And Jesus sees them and realizes, I better go help. They think I'm far away, but I still see that they're in trouble, and I'm going to make my way towards them. Can I be the one to tell you today that if you feel like life is hard right now and you feel like you're in the battle of the storms of this life and you're out on the water all alone, let me encourage you today that God sees you and he's on his way towards the trouble. So Jesus starts walking on water. Imagine this. He's walking on water and the disciples shouted thinking it was a ghost. He walks on the water, he gets into the boat, and he says, hey, don't be afraid, it's just me. And the Bible says that the waves stop, and the wind settles, and Jesus says, you didn't understand the miracle of the loaves. What? Hear this. This is unbelievable. He doesn't get in the boat and say, you didn't understand the miracle of me walking on water. Guys, you didn't just see me walk on water. First I was on land, and then I was walking on water. You didn't see that? He doesn't say that. He doesn't get in the boat and say, wow, did you see that? I got in the boat, and boom, the storm stopped. The waves stopped. The wind stopped. Instead, he goes, you didn't get the loaves. If you're like me and you've been going to church for a while, you may have heard this story 50 times, but I've never noticed this phrase at the end about the loaves. He could have said anything about the miracle of walking on water or calming the storm or all of that, but he says, guys, you didn't get the miracle of the loaves, did you? I need you guys to receive this. If we go back 3 verses earlier, at the end of the previous story, he says, grab the baskets of the leftover fish and the bread. Grab the overflow of the last miracle. And I wondered, what did they do with the baskets? Now, this isn't in the Bible, but it's safe to assume that Jesus had them collect all the leftovers and take them onto the boat for their trip. So they're in a current storm. Hear this. They're in a current storm, and the past miracle of Jesus is on their boat. The miracle Jesus just did is right there, and they're in the midst of the current storm saying, God, where are you? In reality, he was right there. He was in the reminder of the past miracle just a few feet from them. You might be feeling today like, Jesus, where are you? You might be yelling today, Jesus, where are you? If you're so good, where are you? Can I challenge you today to remind yourself of how he's come through for you in the past? You might be in a storm today, and the waves are crashing, and the wind is whipping, and you're thinking, God, what the heck? Where are you? And he's saying, don't you remember the last time I did it? Don't you remember the last time I came through for you? Don't you remember I am the God of miracles, and I'm right there. So today, you might need to remind yourself that God was faithful yesterday, he's faithful today, and he'll be faithful tomorrow. And this is why church is important, because you might be here today and you feel like, I honestly don't know if God's done a miracle in my life. And then you get around some other Christians who can tell you their testimony of how God moved in their life, and you can be encouraged. And that's why the Bible says that there is power in your testimony. So he gets in the boat and he says, you don't remember the loaves, do you? Not the water, not the storm. He says, didn't you just see what I just did a few hours ago? And this is a mirror image of us today, right? We're in a trial. God saves us. We get saved. We get excited. And then we face another trial and we're like, God, where are you? Can I submit to you this morning? Hear me. He is right there. So today I hope that we can leave here with a new perspective, that we can leave here encouraged to get ourselves in order, and that we would know our role, and that today would be a reminder of God's miracles. And for those of us who are going through a storm right now, take courage, because God is with you. Let's pray. God, I just thank you for all that you are. God, when the storms of this life hit, it's hard. It's hard to remember what you've done. We have memory loss when it comes to all the things that you do in our life, whether big or small, God. But I pray that we would be a church that would cling to the reminder of how good you are. And if there was no other miracle in our life, you still died on that cross. That's miracle enough. You don't owe us anything. But you love us enough to come in our boat, say, I'm with you. Even when you feel like I'm not there, I see you at a distance and I'm coming towards you. Thank you for being a God that loves us like that. Would you help us be a people, be a community that could love others like that as well, that when they would come to this house, it wouldn't be a song, it wouldn't be a message, it would just be the feeling. But there's love here. There's something different here. God, it's always you. That this wouldn't be about us for a moment, God. So I pray for anybody in here today that's going through a storm, that you would wrap your arms around them like a good father does, and let them feel your closeness and your comfort and your presence. And would you allow us to be the people, to be the messengers on your behalf that shows them that love when they can't feel it on their own. Jesus, we love you. We love you because of what you've done and what you're going to do. Pray that we would be a church that never forgets. It's in your name that we pray. Amen. You know what? I got one more thing I need to say. I think that there's somebody in here this morning that needs prayer today. I don't know what it's for. I just have this weight. So if that's you today, would you just come see me right over here? There's the American flag, but there's a purple light in the table there today. I don't know what weight came in here this morning. I don't know what burden of whatever you have going on in your life, but I'm here and we are here. So if that's you this morning, at any point during this next song, come over there. Nothing weird's going to happen. We're just going to talk and we're going to pray.
Thank you. You guys can have a seat. I have just a couple of quick announcements, but I'm coming over here because I got to grab this chair because mention bagels, free bagels, check. Don't forget the free bagels. I had to grab a seat real quick because the message was so powerful. I took so many notes. I just want to cover this quickly. Did you see what I see? Did you hear what I just heard? We're sometimes so focused on what we want or what we feel and what we're entitled to that we completely forget to give thanks for what we already have and the blessings that we overlook every day. Our health, our abilities, our provisions, and especially this weekend, our freedoms. Asking God for more money in times of need when you're not handling your finances well is like asking God to throw water on you when you're drowning. Pastor Mike hit the nail on the head. We have to get ourselves right. Allow Jesus to use you how he wants, not how you feel he should. Make yourself available to our Lord. When the disciples were on the boat, and when Pastor Mike said this, it was so impactful to me that they were so focused on him when he got on the boat that what happened? The storm stopped. And I think that's what we need to do. Maybe it's time for us to change our focus and get our focus on Christ, and those storms in our lives will just stop. They'll just stop. They don't have that control in us. So I want to thank you, Pastor Mike, for such an awesome message today. When I gave my message last week, I said there are 3 parts, right? The question, the answer, and the commission. The commission to go out and spread the gospel. One of the easiest ways we can grow our community here and our church is to share the message. And I know it's a simple thing to hit share on Facebook or Instagram. Invite your neighbors to church. So today's such a great message. I would just encourage all of you to just share that message when you get home. If you're new here, definitely fill out the Connect card so we can know how we can be praying for you and we can connect with you here at the church. There are bagels at the back, make sure. And guys, if you want to help us to spread the gospel of Jesus, Pastor Mike said this right in the beginning, none of the money you give goes in his pocket. It goes to spreading the gospel. It goes to growing the church and reaching others. So if you find it on your heart, okay, we have a collection bin in the back. We have a QR code as well. Or you can go online. That's how I do it. We go online. We give it securely online. So it just helps us to just spread the gospel of Jesus. I just want to ask that you all have a safe holiday weekend and take some time to reflect on this awesome message today. And we'll see you back here next week. Thanks, everyone.
Don't give Lee the mic again.
Oh, come get the bagels.